Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and the Argentinian Peso may be about to collapse again. And we go to this article by some weirdo on Steemit. I think his name is The Economic Truth. Oh yeah, it's John Sneisen here. You went into this pretty extensively. They seem to be really trying to cover their butts here. I mean, we can go into all the different pesos from these different countries. They're all quite terrible, but Argentina really has been standing out for quite some time. Can you go into this?
Yeah, well, Argentina has, throughout the decade, throughout the last century, it's been insane. Their currency has really gone amok and collapsed. And if you go and take a look at it, I'm going to take you a little walk through monetary history in Argentina, so you can kind of get a little scope of what has been happening and see how terrible they are at managing their currency. From 1914 to 1948, they had 88.13% inflation, and that was actually an average 2.44% yearly inflation. That's not too bad if you look at other countries. So they were actually pretty prudent during that time frame. Now, of course, from 48 to 69, that's when the hyperinflation kind of started. You saw a jump in inflation. That in total inflation was 7,833.55%, and that's a yearly inflation of 373.02%, which is pretty insane. Now, of course, it's not just hyperinflations that happen in Argentina, and after hyperinflation, usually they just take the devalued currency that they have, and then they create a new currency. It's like, hey, you could come over here, trade in your new currency, but you'll lose X amount. Now, the devaluation that they had in December 1969 to January 1970, it was a 98.92%. So that's how much it lost value overnight. Pretty tremendous amount. Think about if you were having your fiat peso and then you thought that was your life saving, your $100,000. Well, now you have less than $2,000 worth that you're holding. That's insane. Think about that. That's pretty scary. But this is just history. I'm not saying that it'll happen again. Well, it's pretty.
We kind of are.
Yeah. And from 1970 to 83, they had an average. They had an inflation that was 2,822%. And then, of course, the yearly average inflation at that time was 122,706%, which is insane again. And then, of course, they had another devaluation in May 83 to June 83. They had a devaluation of the currency of 99.98%, which is basically where we're at today. If you have the long run over history, we're pretty much there with any currency today. Then again, from 83 to 85, that another big inflationary event, 5,752% inflation, to a yearly inflation over those years, 2,876. Then in May 85 to June 85, then 99.87% devaluation again. And then from 85 to 91, the inflation over that time span was 1.17 million. They had a average yearly inflation which is even higher at this time, 195,460. Then in December 91 to January 92, there was a devaluation of 99.99%. 92 till 2002, there was an average inflation. There was an inflation of 288.8. That's an average yearly inflation still of 28.8%. That's still completely insane. Then 2001 to 2000, from December 2001 to August 2002, the peso again devalued 70.38%. Then from 2002 to May currently, that's the stats that I had, was 502.98%. That's 31.43% average inflation. This is insane, Josh.
Yeah, before we go into any more of it, I mean, as we mentioned so often, all fiat currency eventually reverts to its true value of zero. It always has, it always will, going back to 1024 AD in China. And, obviously, Argentina doesn't learn from their mistakes because they just keep repeating them over and over and over and over and over again. Maybe I should add about 50 more over and over and over again. It's just so ridiculous. But what are the current stats with interest rates and all that?
Well, the interest rates are severely. They actually jumped 678 basis points, so a 6.75%. Just overnight. They're trying to stop the inflation from going haywire again by hiking it. So they have basically the highest interest interest rates in the world right now, higher than Venezuela, which is in hyperinflation.
They're going cashless.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here is, again, complete collapse. And then, of course, there's been people that have been recently buying these high-yielding bonds. They recently issued a 100-year bond in Argentina, massive, high. I don't remember exact yield on it, but that's how yield-starved people are. They're buying this Argentinian debt, which clearly shows that their track record is worth garbage. They should be below default. They should just be G for garbage. That's exactly how they should be rated, the monetary policy of this government. And of course, the current inflation is jumped. It's almost at 30%. It's getting up there. I think it's 25% something. Josh will sort of the numbers there. So it's just insane, like how fast this is just falling apart again in Argentina. And if you don't believe these numbers, I actually have stories from a guy that I met. He moved from Argentina in 2001. Because let me tell you a quick story, because it really hits home to everybody here that have their money in the bank, and maybe start warning you about things to come. So in the early 80s, I believe it was, when his dad he had a business down there. He was quite a wealthy businessman, and he had all of his life savings in Argentinian pesos. Now, as you can see, there was a devaluation, and he lost 75% of his money overnight. And it just, was suddenly a bank holiday, right? And then right after that Friday, during the weekend, on Monday, that money was worth 75%. So that's how it shows you. And then, of course, that was his life savings. So he basically became poor because the government just screwed him over. He didn't know how much of a scam the fiat currency was. And then he just came to the conclusion. He tried to tell his son, don't hold your money in Argentinian pesos. It's dangerous. So what his son did, he held his money in US dollars. And this was in 2001.
Still dangerous.
Oh, very dangerous. And what he didn't understand, he had it in Citibank, which is one of the worst banks to actually rip off every nation in the South America. Actually, they hold mass amounts of bonds to Venezuela, which is about to collapse as well.
A lot of countries actually don't accept Citibank anymore. He put his money in Citibank, but in US dollars. Well, the problem was it was regulated under the Argentinian law. So, during the devaluation, they just took and moved his money from US dollars onto Argentinian pesos, and then voila, again, he lost, as the number said, about 70-something% of his money again. And he's just like, I had enough. I'm getting rid of this. Getting out of here. Get out of this terrible country, which is Argentina. Now, if you're a tourist, you could be like Doug Casey and just live there, have a nice life, because it's so cheap down there. Well, it is a beautiful country. Lots of great people. Let's make that clear. It's the government and the this is all about this is centralization in a nutshell, folks. And we've gone into all the fiat currencies that have failed over time, every single one of them. The only one that's really standing up over longer than usual would be the US dollar, and there's really no reason for that other than more manipulation, which will mean it'll come down even harder than it was before. But John, a lot of people will look at this story here and about Argentina and see how many times they've been through this and go, well, I'm sure they'll just, recover again and then go into inflation again. What do you say to that?
Well, the thing is, they might recover and do that again. They might replace it with a new monetary system. But the problem is, it's all the government and the corruption around it. So they just waste money here and there. Yeah. Just massive. I think it was Fernandez was, if you read my whole article, I have some background on all the corruption. It just comes down to that it will happen again, and will recycle again. And if you position yourself, you might be fine. But then I actually talked to somebody else. I forgot who it was, but somebody was telling me that they had a friend from Argentina that actually he can't sell his house in Argentina. He actually has to go back there and then take care of it. And it's just insane. That's terrible monetary policy. You're not free to actually sell your property.
It's about the time where you abandon the property and run for your life. And, it's really difficult because, every country in the world right now has fiat currency. And there's a few where it's a bit easier to get out of it and try and, put your money into decentralized assets and like physical assets like gold, silver. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in most places, it's very difficult. And it's just come to that time where there will be a monetary revolution happening, and it'll be up to you as individuals understanding it to send it in the right direction, so we don't just repeat the same thing over and over and over again as we have so many times before. With the internet now, we have the ability to be educated and not just get the same old talking points from the mainstream media 24/7. Oh, well, we don't know what happened. Just bad management. We need more management, or we need more centralization. It's just going absolutely insane and going cashless, centralized cashless. So it's so important that people understand centralization is the problem. Government is the problem. Banks are the problem. These are the guys that are manipulating the markets, manipulating the monetary systems of the world, and pushing individuals into debt servitude. They're the ones that are creating the derivatives bubbles. They're the ones that are sinking, fiat currencies, trying to prop them up as long as they can, making it worse off in the long run. They're the ones that are at fault, and it's up to you as an individual to be self-sustainable and financially responsible. For responsibility is a hallmark of freedom itself, and without it, you will just become another cattle for the slaughter. So, John, what would be your bottom line for this report?
Well, the bottom line is don't trust Argentinians. It comes back to the hedge fund.
Argentinian government.
Yeah, the Argentinian government, which is a U.S. government. U.S. hedge fund, actually. They were able to hold the Argentinian Navy ship in the United States at one point because of the bonds that they owed them. I don't know exactly if they were able to get that money back at all. They probably would. Of course, the IMF would just rule right now. I think they should go in and lend some money to get some blood money out of Argentina, as they usually do in any predatory lending facility. It's like these cash lenders, these little money lenders that are out there, just a loan for your paycheck loans and so on. That's what should come in there, and that's what IMF is. They should just come straight in and borrow this money, and it's just insane what's happening. Why are we trusting this again? We have to understand history, and I highly suggest you, because most of the information that I pulled from this came out of my book that I have talked about, the Argentinian Peso problem.
Yeah, The End of Freedom, How Our Monetary System Enslaves Us, which is up on Amazon.
Yeah, and if you take a look and take some time to read stories, not just my book, you can go and read any monetary history book to get some perspective of what is happening with a currency currently. You'll see that every single time, and by no failure at all, it always goes back to that zero, as Josh always says. It always fails, it always collapses because it gets misused. Debt mass accumulates, and there's no more, people able to get into debt anymore, and then it just collapses like the Ponzi scheme it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Value comes from scarcity, application, demand, things that actually create value, not just creating nothing out of thin air and hoping that people have faith in it, which is insane, and it always comes down, always will. And if they shove you down that bottomless pit of debt, you are forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, which puts you in perfect servitude to them right where they want you. They always do. You got to get out of debt. You got to stay out of debt. You got to decentralize your life and be self-sustainable, and it will come down to you in the end, because you can't wait for someone else to save you. Learn the information, spread the information, take action with the information, be the change you wish to see, instead of depending on others that take advantage of you to change your life for you, because they change it for the worse.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, the Argentinians, they'll find solutions. I just recently read an article about an Argentinian company that are mining in bunkers, for example, cryptocurrency. And then instead of, what they did back in the day when they had their big revolution in 2001, when they had the big penis, that they shoved into the door of the parliament building.
I'm not going to show an image of that.
You might want to actually see it. It's pretty hilarious. But
look it up. Look up Argentina penis.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Well, no, it'll definitely just have you show. It just shows you how bad the government is, and it's just a perfect description and how and what the government is all about there.
Absolutely. So, closing it off, of course, as I always say, just stay out of debt, rule yourself, stay responsible, be decentralized, self-preservation is quite important these days, as everyone wants to take you down another notch. So, thanks for going into this with us, John, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
be the change.
Like what you see here, Wham? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube as the ADL comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. Also, check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also find us at steemit.com at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in Steem, the cryptocurrency. And also find us at the Red Pill Expo, which we have a reference link for below in the description and the comments as well. Hosted by G. Edward Griffin, amazing speakers coming out to speak this year. Don't miss it. It's in Spokane, Washington, June 21st to 23rd. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.